This is AEW Unrestricted, the official podcast of All Elite Wrestling. I'm here, Aubrey Edwards, with my good pal, Tony Schiavone. And we're here today with a man that literally I don't think I could properly introduce ever if I tried. I think the only one who could potentially introduce him is Tony Schiavone.
Yeah, Sting is with us. I know what you're wanting. You're wanting to say, it's Sting! But
Got it.
Yeah, there you go. But Sting is here with us. Sting, it is great to be talking to you again, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great. You know, as you're talking about introducing me and all that, I just can't help but go back in time and remember very first, like one of the first matches we ever went to with Jim Hellwig and I, you know, who became the Ultimate Warrior. We're in Alexandria, Louisiana. We walk into the Coliseum there. We're meeting all the guys, shaking hands with everybody. Shake hands with Jim Duggan. His eyes are kind of crossed and, you know, he's got sweat all over him. He's just fresh out of the ring. And he goes, "What's your name, brother?" I go, "Sting." He goes, "Steve?" "No, Sting." "And?" "No, Sting." "Stink? Heck of a gimmick, brother." All right.
Only Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Yep.
It's there's millions of stories I know that we can tell, and we want to get into some of those. But the first story I want to talk about is getting into AEW. That's kind of how we always begin this podcast when we talk to one of our superstars. You arriving to AEW was something that surprised, I guess is the right word. Maybe Aubrey shocked. I'm not sure.
There was a whole gambit of emotions. I think just watching the people in the back was probably the best possible way to understand how crazy it was, because you have Wardlow, who looks like a kid on Christmas. You have other people like, "No, that wasn't Sting. There's no way he's here." And then just other people like, "Yeah, what's up? He's here." It was nuts. I know from a talent perspective, it was all over the place. And the fans, it was the first time it felt like a full arena since the pandemic.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
I have heard stories about, you know, when I walked through and, you know, unfortunately I had to beeline right into, you know, gorilla position pretty much, you know, but I did see a lot of heads turning and all that. And, you know, it was kind of cool to shake hands with some of the guys on the way back out, you know. Anyway, it was really good. And you know, the response from the guys and, you know, and the girls in the back and from the fans, I mean, every time, you know, it's like a shock to me, you know, all these years later, it's like, I can't believe it.
Well, you know, I had heard that you may be coming. That's all I heard. So when JR and Excalibur and I came into into your trailer in the back, that was really the first time it really, because Cody said, "Your buddy's here." I said, "Okay, that's good." "Who the hell are you talking about anyway?" He said, "Sting." I said, are you serious?" He said, "Yeah." He said, let's go in the back and talk to him. So we went in the back, and with Tony Khan to talk to you. And that was the first time. So it shocked me. It really did. So let me ask you, how did this all come about, Sting?
Well, you know, it all started, actually, if we go way back, you know, 5 years, I got a call from Tony Khan 5 years ago or so, maybe even more. And I didn't know who he was. And he said, "Hey, you know, my name is Tony Khan, blah, blah, blah." He mentioned the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I thought, who is this? So, you know, I did my research and found out there is a Tony Khan and a Shot Khan. And I ended up calling him back and you know, he wanted me to sign a baseball bat and he wanted to present it to the team at the time and all that.
Right.
That's a whole nother side story that we'll talk about another time. But
okay.
Anyway, so I met Tony, you know, long before AEW, long before any of that ever happened. And then my son, my second oldest son, actually tried out with the Jaguars. He tried out with 4 different teams, the Jaguars being one of them. And so there's some history there with Tony, but he called me again about, maybe a year ago or so. And he didn't call me. He sent a text. And, you know, I'm still with WWE, so,
right.
You know, I got to be careful how I handle all this kind of stuff. And so I just kept it superficial, and that was that. And, oh man, I'd say 2 months ago or so, somewhere around there, I reached out and I said, "Hey, are you still willing to talk?" And he said, "Yeah." So here we are.
Wow.
Damn.
And talking about the fast track, and then as you said, you made that beeline from your trailer to the gorilla position, and that's one of the things that I regret about being because I don't know, Aubrey, if anybody got any video of that or not, but that's one of the things I regret about being at the announce position, to see everybody's reaction and see everybody, because I may have told you this, and I know you and I kind of talked afterwards that, go and say hello to these kids because you're like a god to these kids. I mean, you really, really are. And there's Mark Quinn of Private Party, who every time he would see me, Sting, in the back, every day, every TV taping, without fail, he would look at me and go, "It's Sting." And so I told him, when I found that you were there, I said, "Don't get too excited about tonight's show." He went, "I'm only in a battle royal and I'm not even winning. What are you talking about?" I said, "Just don't get too excited." So he shoved me a note, came around the corner and shoved me an OMG note. So it had to be, and Aubrey, I want you to chime in on this one because you were there. Mm-hmm. Aubrey, tell me when you saw him for the first time, what you thought.
So my position was slightly different than everyone else because I was coming out from the ring. I think I had a match like right before, and I'm just kind of walking through Gorilla. It's very clear they've got like a production team in the back. It's getting kind of stuffed. So I'm like, okay, well, I got to get out of here. And I walk past and I see Sting and I'm like, "Hey, what's up, Sting?" And I think I gave you a fist bump and then walked away. And I'm like, okay, that's how that went. Great. That's how I introduced myself to Sting. So
yeah,
cool. Awesome.
Very nonchalant. It was great. Yeah.
We're all at work. Whatever, brother.
What else are you going to do, right?
Right. Yeah. I was getting texts from my two oldest sons, and I was getting a text from my daughter who follows it. And I got a text from Britt Baker, Dr. Britt Baker, who, of course, we do a little routine back and forth on set with her. I'm supposed to quote her best friend. And her text was, "You didn't tell me Sting was going to be here, and you need to tell me every time something like this is going to happen." I'm thinking, hey, I've got a broadcast to do here, guys. I can't keep reading texts going on.
Status with her.
Yes, I did. Well, I'm sure I'll do something to gain it back. But it had to be a good feeling for you. I mean, we say this all the time about our team, and you had even mentioned this to Tony. Working for Tony is great. It has a great feeling backstage, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And, I had to tell Tony that, I had several of the guys, approach me, and even some of the guys that don't even work with the company and say that, all kinds of good stuff about Tony. I haven't heard anybody say anything bad about Tony. And you can always tell when somebody's being genuine and when they're not being genuine. I mean, we've been doing this long enough. Even when somebody's trying to speak positive, that there's an undercurrent of cynicism and, bitterness and resentment and all that kind of stuff. But it's not so here with AEW. And, I told Tony, I said, man, it starts from the top and trickles on down, to everyone else. And the only time I ever got to experience anything like this was for a short period of time of probably 18 months or so with WCW when, we launched the Monday Nitro show. And we had the Monday Night Wars going on, and we were, we were killing it every single week. But you had a bunch of guys from the top all the way down to the bottom, all marching to the same beat in the same direction. There was unity, and the creative juices are flowing, and it's positive and it's good. There's no cliques, there's none of that kind of stuff. And so I experienced it there for a little while. Everybody kind of moving in the same direction where everybody wanted the company as a whole to succeed and move forward. And, it was short lived. And, here with AEW, it's like, it is almost knocking me over just how much everybody wants this company to succeed and to do well. So there's unity here. It's good. Yeah. It's healthy. It's a healthy environment. I mean, I can see cancer from a mile away, and I don't see any cancer cells here.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing place, and we talk about it frequently on this podcast as well as other places. But I mean, I've been kind of waiting for the shoe to drop, and it's been like a year and a half, and it hasn't. So
yeah.
You're in really good hands. It's a nice family here. Yeah. Like, a lot of times, family gets thrown around as a term, like, oh yeah, it's a family, and then people are stabbing you in the back. But this is definitely one of those places where I know I haven't experienced anything like that. It's just everyone's all in it together. We're all working towards the same goal.
Right. There isn't any group of people like this that's perfect. That's for sure. And I'm definitely not one of the perfect ones. But I gotta say, this is a really good, healthy environment. I mean, everybody's got a smile on their face, and you're gonna love it here. You're gonna love it. This is the best, So It's good.
So you walk out with a great video, and snow is coming down. Now, I know it's the pandemic era, Sting, and I know we don't have the crowds that we normally have, but the fans and the kids, I call them the kids, the wrestlers at ringside going crazy, giving each other high fives. And so when you're stepping through and that snow's coming down, you get the response. How did that feel to you? I mean, you've done so many things in this sport. How did that moment feel to you?
I've always thought I had a pretty good ear. You can really kind of tell where the heartbeat is of the wrestling fans, and where they are, if they're really sinking their teeth into something that they really like, and if they're not. And it really felt good, even though it was a pandemic crowd. It felt really good. And as far as the snow, I mean, I've made every kind of entrance under the sun. I mean, they've done everything except for shoot me out of a cannon. But I got to tell you,
give it time.
Snow is a first for me.
Yeah.
Winter's coming, and it is so cool. And I've had more people say, "Oh, dude, the snow, man, that's awesome,"
Right.
Yeah.
It's tremendous.
Good deal. What are we going to do in summer? That's what I'm worried about.
Well, I don't know. Hopefully it'll warm up a little bit, because I was freezing to death the last time we did a show backstage.
Oh,
wow, that was really cold.
Yeah, it was freezing last time.
Yeah, I thought it was supposed to be warm in Florida, guys. What the hell happened?
No, not always.
Not in Northeast Florida.
There's some type of vortex wind kind of thing that comes through there, from what I understand, too.
And it just sits right there.
Right. Yeah, there's not much difference between Jacksonville and South Georgia, I can tell you that, living in this area as long as I've lived. We're talking with Sting, and this is AEW Unrestricted. Of course, his entrance into AEW has been well documented and well talked about, and we want to talk a little bit more about him coming into AEW. But right now we want to our next question is going to be about when Sting first started in pro wrestling, if we can go back that far, because I know it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, you scared me for a second. If we can go back that far. I mean, you pulled yourself out at the last second there, Tony. Very
I always do.
Very
I always do.
We're here, Tony and Aubrey, with Sting, talking a little bit about AEW introduction, joining the AEW family, but we want to kind of take a step back. You've got a very special relationship with Dusty Rhodes and the Rhodes family.
Yes.
So what is it like now being at a company where Cody and Dustin have sort of made a new name for themselves?
First of all, I'm so proud of both of those guys. I mean, and boy, it couldn't happen to two better guys, I mean, second generation wrestlers, their dad being ultra famous, and the most charismatic of all time in my book, and having to follow in his footsteps. And, it can seem bleak for a minute in life, and then suddenly a shift can happen. And, if you've got the work ethic and the love of game and all that, which Cody and Dustin both have, then I guess you got the makings to turn something, like the diamond in the rough kind of a deal. And they did it. And I'm so proud of those guys for doing it. I mean, Cody was just like a little kid, yeah, he was just a tiny kid in the beginning. And Dustin and I, we got a history. I was on the road with him on and off. We were in the same cab of the car driving together. And so all these years later, just to see the fast forward of all this and how far they've come, and the deal that they put together, and the Tony Khan thing, and AEW, and then TNT, and back in the jungle again. I mean, wow. I mean, people ask me in the Q&As for 20 years, don't you wish there could be another, WCW? And it's like, what's it going to take to make that happen? Well, it's going to take another billionaire who's all in.
Right.
And otherwise, it ain't going to happen. I tried a few other things that it wasn't going to happen. But anyway, I'm so glad that Cody and Dustin did what they did, and AEW is what it is, and I get to be a part of it.
You mentioned about you and Jim Hellwig together. When you first started in wrestling, you and I kind of talked earlier about this, about you started with Jerry Jarrett, and you and Hellwig were together as a tag team. He went on, of course, to be the Ultimate Warrior. I'm leading on to this long question to ask you, when did you first start into pro wrestling? When did you first get, quote unquote, the idea that, hey, I wanted to be a pro wrestler?
I never did get the idea that I wanted to be a pro wrestler.
Okay.
Ever once. I was approached by a guy named Rick Bassman. Many people know who Rick Bassman is. Have you ever met Rick, Tony?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm surprised, but a lot of people know him. Anyway, California guy, and I co-owned a Gold's Gym in Southern California with a guy named Ed Connors, who was the treasurer of Gold's Gym in Venice Beach, the Mecca. And we ran this Gold's Gym in Reseda at the time. And Rick Bassman came in with 3 other guys, and he was trying to break into pro wrestling. He was the manager, and he had 3 big guys, and he wanted to put a sign up in the gym, which I allowed him to do. And these guys worked out, and they were trying to recruit a 4th guy for weeks, and no bites. And one day Rick said, what about you? And I had no interest in doing that, but I was bartending in a nightclub. I was bouncing in the nightclub. I was, auditioning for movies with no acting experience whatsoever. So I was I was trying to get somewhere. Arnold Schwarzenegger was making all his movies. And I'm like, he didn't even speak English in the beginning, and look at him now. So if he can do it, I got to be able to do this. And so, I wanted something. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll try this. And so he talked me into going with all the guys, to the sports arena in Los Angeles. Hulk Hogan, Big John Studd, Andre the Giant, the Iron Sheik, the British Bulldogs, Adrian Adonis, and all these guys. And, to coin the 80s phrase, I tell the story the same way every time, but I mean, it was pandemonium, and,
right.
Red and yellow bandanas everywhere for Hogan. And I went, wow, this is insane. And back up a little bit, this big guy with blonde hair used to come into the gym to work out all the time, and people would freak out and they'd say, don't you know who that is? And I'd say, I don't know who he is. He's Hulk Hogan. Who's Hulk Hogan? He's the guy from the Rocky movie. Oh, I know that guy. That was the only way I knew him. See, I didn't know anything about pro wrestling. I grew up north of the San Fernando Valley in a place called Santa Clarita. We didn't have wrestling on TV, so I had no idea what pro wrestling was. So, but anyway, we go to this big show, and I decide, this is what I want to try and do. And for me, it was all about making it big. That's all I wanted to do was make it big, like Arnold, like Hogan. And so that's where it all started.
Wow. And so now you're from out in California. How did you make your way to Middle America?
Jim Hellwig and I, Jim was not one of the original 4 guys. He came on about halfway through the wrestling camp. We went through a wrestling camp, and Jim Hellwig and I were the only 2 guys that really, we were really trying to be pro wrestlers. We were trying to figure this whole thing out, how to do the moves, how to take the bumps, and learn the psychology and all that. And so we sent out press kits, even to Japan, all over the United States, because at the time, there were all these regional territories all over the place.
Right.
And, we had one person reach out to us of all the ones that we sent out, like 30 of them. And, Jerry Jarrett was the only one who reached out and said, yeah, I want you guys. We had a picture of all 4 of us, on this 8x10 that we sent him. And he said, I only want 2 of the 4. And Jim was living with me in the house at the time, my house in California. He was on one line, I was on the other. And Jerry says, yeah, I only want 2. Well, which 2 do you want? Well, the picture I'm looking at, I want the 2 guys to the far left, which was Jim and me. And so, well, you're talking to those 2 guys. So he said, well, get in your car and come on out. And we started in Nashville, Tennessee, just Thanksgiving Day, 1985 was the very first match.
How long did you guys end up tagging together?
Oh, it was short-lived. We tagged for maybe a total of 12 months or so. 3 months with Jerry Jarrett. We were so bad. When I had separated my shoulder, and Jerry Jarrett said, you guys, I got to let you go, got to finish you up. Jim's out in the ring, doing something because he wasn't injured. I was injured. So I'm in the back, and Jerry says, I got to let you guys go. I got to finish you up. Okay, finish this up. What does that mean? It was, I got to let you go. But I'm not just going to let you go. I'm going to place you guys with Bill Watts, UWF. So, okay. So we went to the UWF. We wrestled there as a tag team for 9 to 12 months or so. And then he split off and went to World Class, became the Dingo Warrior, and then the WWE and the Ultimate Warrior and all that. And I ended up with WCW.
So WCW, 6-time WCW world champion, I believe. I mean, even that one statement doesn't really summarize everything you've done there. But I know for a long time you had a lot of these great matches with Ric Flair. Is there anyone in particular that stands out to you?
Of all the opponents that I wrestled?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you said it already. I mean, Rick is, I mean, he's the one that put me on the map, and he taught me more in the first 6 months wrestling him that I learned in the first, almost 2 years of being in the business. And then I continued to learn. He was like a mentor to me. I didn't know it at the time. He didn't know it at the time, but he really was. He was mentoring me, and I was learning a ton. But aside from Rick, I used to love my matches with Vader. We used to have really good matches. I used to, like to wrestle the big guys. And Rick Rude, he was like one of the greatest heels of all time in my book. I used to love to wrestle Rick, the great Muda, going to Japan and wrestling him there and having him in the United States. We were equal in size and, had the same type of abilities. And so that was really good too. So a lot of guys that I had fun working with, but those are the top guys.
When Crockett buys UWF and you come over with UWF and you start working on a national level on TBS, everybody points to the first Clash of the Champions being the one night that introduced us to Sting. And would you say that's correct? I mean, that was
the match that put me on the map. There's no question about it. I mean, 45 minutes. I mean, there was a lot of good things that happened. That was I don't know if you remember, Tony, but the first time in television history that, any sporting type event went commercial free for 45 minutes.
Right.
And, then we got a 7.1 rating or whatever it was, unbelievable at the time. And that match really did put me on the match. We had the three judges, and of course, one for Rick, one for me, and then the other one was in the middle. And so it was a draw. Rick kept the title, but it put me on the map. And, I'll never forget that. Rick had the ability to make or break me. And, man, he made me.
Damn. So I know that was, I think it was 1988 for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. I want to talk a little bit about fast forward to working with Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen back in 1990, 91.
What about just to comment on working with the Four Horsemen?
Yeah, what was it like?
Oh, I mean, you're in the ring with some of the best in the business. And I had not only Rick now teaching me, but I could learn from Arn and I could learn from Tully. I mean, just a phenomenal experience being with these guys, and the respect that I had for them was immense. And, I was all ears. I'm the quiet guy listening and absorbing all that I can possibly absorb from these guys. And, wanting to please them, of course, wanting to please the fans as well. But what an overall phenomenal experience. I mean, you go from being the curtain jerker, kind of a guy, the guy on before intermission, to all of a sudden, you're in main events almost every single night, and you're working with the best in the business. I mean, I felt like I arrived. I'll never forget walking through the airport in Pittsburgh, and I saw Andre the Giant, and he's walking one way and I'm walking the other, and I said, Andre, and he turned, he looked at me, Sting, how you doing, boss? Man, Andre, how you doing, boss? That was big for me.
Right. I can understand that. I get that. During that time is when you have your knee injury. And it happened, I believe. And of course, I wasn't there, but was it at Corpus Christi?
Corpus Christi, February of 1990. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, it was very apparent that you heard it climbing the cage. Am I right to say that?
I was jumping up to how you shoot a layup in basketball. You jump up, if you're right-handed, you jump off your left leg. I was doing that to try to get as high as I could, because I was supposed to climb in the cage and get to Rick. And it was almost like a Nancy Kerrigan. Remember her? That whole story.
Sure do.
I swear, I thought a wrestling fan took a pipe or something and whacked my knee. That's what it felt like. And I remember grabbing the bars like this and looking behind me over there to see, and all the wrestling fans were just sitting there, and I knew nobody did anything. So I reached down with my left hand and I put my fingers underneath my kneecap, and I knew that my patella tendon was completely gone and severed. So I hop back down, and now I'm hopping on my right leg. And as I do that, my left leg from the knee down is just sort of twirling around in circles like this, just grotesque. And Rick now decides he's going to climb over. It's like, oh, maybe Sting didn't know what he was supposed to do or something. Mm-hmm. So he comes out and he comes running after me. And I got Doug Dillinger, I got Wahoo McDaniel, and I got some of the other guys around me. And I'm saying, tell Rick I'm hurt. Tell him my knee is toast. I'm done, and here he comes, I got to watch this on film. I haven't seen it since it happened, but he jumps on top of me and I'm holding him, hopping on one leg with the other leg dangling all over like this. Rick, I'm hurt. Anyway. Yeah, that was February of 1990. And then, July, I came back. Great American Bash.
That's such a quick turnaround, man.
It should have been longer, but that was the old school mentality, and in those days, you had your position, you had your spot, and I didn't want to lose my spot. And, so you had to come back quick if you wanted to keep it. And there were all kinds of new young lions, ready to take your place. And I didn't want to lose my opportunity with Rick. I wanted it to keep rolling.
And so you come back, and Great American Bash Baltimore become the champion, one of the greatest NWA world title matches ever. Had to have a big feeling not only about winning it, but also about being able to come back. Because when you have an injury like that, I know that you always have to doubt that you can even come back, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was the kind of injury. It was a patella tendon. It's the biggest tendon in your body. And I think it just, 10, 15 years earlier, there was no type of surgery to fix that type of injury. So you were, and that tendon will allow you to put one foot in front of the other. Without it, you can't put the other foot out. And so your career in sport life is completely done at that point. So, and then I was able to see, one of the best, or the best, at the time, especially Jim Andrews out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Right.
And he put me back together. He said, Steve, you're going to need 9 months. I said, I can't do that. It's got to be quicker. And so, I mean, I've seen little bits and pieces of that, and you can see that my left leg is smaller than my right leg, and my, I'm a little loose around the waist. I'm not in really good condition. It was a great night, but I was not in really good physical condition. I shouldn't have come back that early.
We're here with Sting on AEW Unrestricted, talking some stories about WCW, and I'm sure we've got plenty more. AEW Unrestricted, Aubrey and Tony sitting here chatting with Sting, WCW stories. I don't think we can finish talking about WCW without talking about Starrcade 97. I think it was highest grossing pay-per-view in WCW history, 17,000 people in the crowd. What do you remember from that match and that night?
Well, I do remember, as far as buy rates and all that, it was the number one highest grossing pay-per-view in the history of all pay-per-views, any kind of pay-per-view. So at the time, I'll never forget that. We were breaking attendance records in all these arenas all over the country, and it was an incredible time. Unbelievable. I mean, that was I feel like I kind of came into my own, finally at that particular time. And there was a certain level of maturity that I had reached and experienced, and some seasoning that happened over all the years, learning from Rick and everyone else. And everything just happened all perfect at the same time. And it was phenomenal.
It was during that time, and of course I was there, so I lived it as well. It was during that time of the NWO invasion that you kind of made your transition. I mean, there are two Stings, really. There's the beach Sting with the blonde hair and the colors that you talked about, the neon colors you talked about on TV that Dusty Rhodes put on you. And now it's the Sting that we call the Crow Sting. That was, and you were representing WCW at that time. That became the angle of all angles for not only this pay-per-view we're talking about, but that whole angle of Sting in the rafters, Sting watching down, Sting coming down, rappelling down, was the number one angle for WCW. And there was a lot of the success of the company was based on that angle, don't you think?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it was huge, and it wasn't just me, of course. It was everybody. It was the NWO, Hogan, Hall, Nash, and the whole NWO. I mean, the whole package, everyone together. And again, we're all, marching to the same beat, to the same drum. And so it was all good. But yeah, I mean, from the top all the way down, what an experience. And I do believe that was an angle that I'll never forget, is less is more. I mean, I didn't talk,
Right.
But it's also filled with risk. I took risk and changing your character around, and your blonde flat top, neon glow in the dark, kind of a character, charismatic, and then all of a sudden, you're stoic. There's no speech. There's you're changing you're up in the rafters, it's like, well, are fans going to fart all over this? I mean, what's going to happen here?
Right.
And it ended up working. Thank God for that. And and it really set the precedent at the time.
So after that great run, it's not too long after that, when WCW goes down, and you and Ric Flair have your match in the very last Monday Nitro, which was Panama City back in 2001. Tell us what you remember about that night.
Oh, man, it was surreal. I've always used that term, surreal, because it was like we were the second-class citizens for many, many years. Second to WWE. We launched Nitro. We kill it for so long. We almost put WWE completely under and out of business. And, all of a sudden you've got these Monday Night Wars, and their ratings are coming up, and it's like, now it's neck and neck. They catch us. Now they're ahead of us almost every week. And then, rumors, you hear all these rumors. Oh, it's, we're going to be bought out. And then you find out Vince McMahon might be buying us out. And then sure enough, Vince McMahon is going to buy us out. And they show up in Panama City, and they want Rick and I to leave the fans with something good. They want it to be something positive. So we have a short little match, but it kind of felt like the enemy came in and took the women and children. There was pillaging and raping, and there's just all these, it's like chaos, it's like, what,
Sure.
what is happening here?
Right.
I mean, I remember Ted Turner meeting with us and saying, in the very beginning, I got all the suits and ties around me, and, and they complain about you guys. They don't like you wrestlers because we're always in the red. But you know what I tell them? I tell them I love wrestling, and I got some deep pockets. So you guys just keep doing what you're doing, And, the billionaire is, in the end, didn't even know what was going on, I guess. I don't know. And we were put on the chopping block and sold for like next to nothing. So second-class citizens, we finally make it, we're number one in the world, and then we get bought out, and it's over and done. And you disappear, like a puppy with his tail between his legs,
Right.
That was just a horrible time for me.
What, the whole run up to that?
Well, yeah. I mean,
yeah, because it was for me too, and I tell you why. And you and I were obviously different. I was an announcer, and you were a talent, but the rumors killed me. The uncertainty every day of not knowing what we were doing,
right,
really just really grated on me, and really put a bad taste in my mouth about the business.
Yeah, and then I had a contract that had another, I don't know, 18 months, 2 years left on it, and I had a paycheck coming in. I mean, that was good.
Yeah, right.
No job duties to perform anymore.
Yeah,
and wow, what a way to go out after all those years. What a way to end it. It's sucked.
So did you have an opportunity to go work with Vince after that? After everything ended?
After it ended, we never did talk. There was never any discussion, at least not immediately after. It was I don't know, maybe a year after, something like that, Vince reached out, and we had conversation, and talking with Vince, was always good. But then you get, his group of attorneys and my attorney, and they, and then it all kind of falls apart. So
sure.
And I just, long story short, I just wasn't willing to make the commitment that he wanted. There was more to it than that, but
I get that.
Yeah. So
yeah, I understand. So you did work for TNA for a time. Tell us how that all developed.
I was called by, it's funny, Jerry Jarrett's son, Jeff, by Jeff Jarrett. So, the guy who gave me my break originally, Jerry Jarrett, his son, Jeff, all those years later, struck some kind of deal with Dixie Carter, and he called and said, "Hey, would you want to come and just do a show?" And I did one. You want to do another one? All right. And then it was like, could we get you to sign a deal and maybe do something with us? I really don't want to, And it took some twisting really of my arm really at the time to do it, but I decided I was going to do it. And Vince was in the picture once again during that time. I'll never forget. I'm talking to him on the phone. I said, "Vince, I'm going to go to TNA." And he said, "The thought of you and the legacy that you leave behind and you going to TNA is just blah." He literally said, "Blah." Yeah. I mean, yeah. And then I ended up working for him a few years later. So
right. You did get your WrestleMania moment. That had to be pretty exciting.
It was. It really was. I didn't know how the Monday Night War thing. You didn't know how the WWE universe would take to me and all the guys, and it was good. Same kind of a deal. I was snuck in everywhere and hidden until the last possible moment, and I showed up, and the guys were watching on the monitors and in the dressing rooms, and some of them saw me walking through, and it was the same kind of a scene. It was pretty cool. And then the crowd did receive me, and that was a relief. That really was a relief. It was good. So I felt like, well, I've done just about everything there is to do here, and I had fun. They treated me good.
Right. Yeah, it was quite a moment. A year later, you get inducted into the Hall of Fame, and that had to be special for you too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Hall of Fame. I was reluctant to do it because, I was still scheduled to work and wrestle, and I said to Triple H, I said, "I'm still wrestling."
Right.
He said, "Yeah, we think it's still going to be good."
Mm-hmm.
And just because you're inducted doesn't mean you're retiring or it's over.
Right.
I said, "Okay,
that's true.
I can do that."
Sure.
So I did it.
So we have gone through a very lengthy and prosperous and exciting career. Are you like me? You look back and you think, where did the time go? Because it seems like there's part of me that seems like it happened all so quickly from the time you and I first, you tweeted me the picture of you and I on our first TBS show together. And then you tweeted the picture of us in the ring. It seems like from that time to this time, it's quicker. It goes by quickly, but then it takes forever.
Yeah, it's like a mix of both, depending on how you're looking at it. 33 years later, Tony.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
Here
right.
we are.
Damn.
And
that's exactly right.
Yeah, and I feel like you haven't changed a whole heck of a lot at all. You still have a youthfulness about you. You still look pretty much the same.
Yeah.
And gosh, just hearing your voice and like even looking at you right now, I mean, it does bring back some really, really good memories. And wow, we've I believe come now. This is the true full circle picture for me.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree.
TNT, a lot of the same people, even the behind the scene, the Keith Mitchells and gosh, Ross,
Daryl Moore. Yeah.
it's incredible.
Yeah.
And of course, we cannot forget Aubrey.
It's hard.
Nah.
It's hard not to forget Aubrey.
Nah. Yeah, no. I run in and start swearing. Everyone knows I'm there.
Personality plus, right?
I say this because it's true, and I didn't realize how much, you and I right now are, especially you, nostalgia is big, and we bring back the childhood of the kids who were back in the 90s. And so you have to realize what your role is in this company, and one of your roles in this company is person that all these kids who love wrestling, Aubrey being one, all the wrestlers look up to you. And have you been asked any advice since then? Or are they, I mean, I know you've only been with us for like not even a month, but have they asked you for any advice? Or are you willing to give some advice to be like a mentor to some of these kids?
Oh, absolutely. I'd be an idiot if I didn't, try to pour into some of these guys and, pay attention to what they're doing. I mean, I've had some of them say, if you watch me, I mean, could you watch me and just, I just tell me whatever you want to tell me. I mean, I just want to get better, And
Right.
so, yeah, I am getting that kind of stuff. And of course, I'm going to be glad to do that. But I mean, what a group of people. I mean, wrestling has changed, and some of the matches that I have seen, they're the most incredible, athletic, high paced. I don't know how many false finishes. They got the crowd rocking and rolling. I mean, on every single match, it seems. And, some of the big names, the Kenny Omegas and John Moxleys and, I mean, the Young Bucks. I mean, wow. Darby. I mean, these guys are ultra talented. And I love the fact that they're, when I first started, it's like, I didn't want to do and be like the generation before me.
Right.
I wanted to be different, and I was. And these guys, I'm watching them do the same thing. They're not. They're different. They've changed. They've changed it. They've changed the psychology. They've changed, how they tell a story, and they're good. Very innovative and athletes, and taking it seriously, living, eating, and breathing it. They do.
Yeah,
they do. My hat's off to every one of them.
So you've had an incredible career, and the impact you've made is very obvious, and guys are all already coming to you for advice. But what would you say is the biggest thing you're trying to get out of being at AEW?
Man, the biggest thing I'm trying to get,
or give back.
Yeah,
or...
It's going to be a combination of getting and giving. Getting is just, how do I put this? All those who we just talked about it with WCW. I didn't want to disappear with my tail between my legs, and here recently, I didn't want to just end the way it ended.
Right.
I was pushing to get a cinema style match with Baker.
Mm-hmm.
And for probably a litany of different reasons, it just wasn't going to happen. And so, when Tony called and spoke with me, and he said, "Are you interested in doing cinema style matches?" I said, "Yeah, I am." I am.
Absolutely.
And so, I thought, I'd like to come back and do that and not disappear again with the tail between my legs. I'd love to be able to go out, I don't know if to go out on top. I'm just saying to go out in a positive light, and then as far as the other, giving, I would like to mentor, some of these guys and, be of any kind of help that I possibly can, even though it's changed, I still get it, and I'd like to be, a part of helping some of these guys get better.
Well, just your appearance is going to help people get better. We're up against the time here, Sting, but I wanted to ask you how things going for you personally right now. Everything, family, doing okay? Everybody okay?
Everyone's doing great. Yeah. No COVID issues. No.
Yeah.
Everybody's healthy. Everybody's happy.
Good.
All is good.
Checking all the positive boxes.
Well, all is great with Sting and AEW, and we appreciate your time here, buddy. We really do.
Thanks for having me.
So much.
Yeah.
So much. Thank you so much for being here
pleasure,
today.
Aubrey. Thank you.
Holiday season and all that. We're all very, very busy with things going on. So, your time's valuable, and thanks. I'm so looking forward to having you around.
Right
and
on.
Learning all that I can.
Love to hear it. Thank you.
Yay.
You can follow Sting on Instagram at Stinger, on Twitter at Sting. Subscribe to our podcast, which is called Unrestricted. How much does it cost, Aubrey?
It's free, and you can get it wherever you get your podcasts.
You can also check out the video of this podcast on YouTube. Just search AEW Unrestricted and tune in to AEW Dynamite Wednesdays, 8 o'clock, 7 Central on TNT, because you never know when the snow is going to come down again, right?
God, I love the
Absolutely.
snow. I love the snow. So good.
Thanks again, Sting. It's great talking to you. I'm Tony Schiavone.
It's Tony!
I love it.
Thanks for listening.
It's Aubrey!
Thanks for listening to Unrestricted.